Did you know that some toads are explosive? It's no lie. The animal kingdom is as weird as it is fascinating, with some of its beautiful creatures dishing up surprise after surprise, producing a range of spectacular phenomena which have left even the most educated of scientists scratching their heads. We've witnessed enormous locust outbreaks spanning continents, thousands upon thousands of snakes in Canada, of all places, glowing beaches, glowing squids, and even brighter glowing fireflies. As you're about to see, Earth's animals truly know how to put on a show. Slimy and speckled. Those are a couple words we typically use to describe toads. Rarely do we ever call a toad explosive. And yet in April of 2005, over in Hamburg, Germany, that's exactly what they were. Over the course of just a few short days, thousands of toads not only began inflating, but reached a point of no return, splattering their guts in every direction. As crazy as it all sounds, this isn't even the first instance of Amphibian Armageddon. The initial wave was recorded back in 1968, also in Germany. But why? Surely this can't be a random act of Mother Nature's froggy rage. The answer? Murdersome crows. Those clearly with a particular taste for foie gras. While most predators lack the foresight to realize that toads are poisonous, crows have done their homework. They realize that the liver is the only part worth eating. So, in 2005, a flock of crows had taken up residence in parts of Hamburg, and they had a craving for toad liver. So they swooped down, stuck their beaks inside the toads, and faster than you could say rabbit, the livers were extracted. The toads would then instinctively puff themselves up to scare the predators away. But in doing so, this inflation technique proved to be their downfall, because the increase in air pressure squeezed out all of their bits from the new-formed hole. Yuck! For something far less gag-worthy and much more likely to make you say, ooh, let's head on over to the Smoky Mountains of the USA. Here, every year from late May to mid-June, within a 2-week window, the local fireflies pull on their Sunday best and offer one of the most dazzling light shows on Earth for everyone to see. As part of their mating rituals, the synchronous fireflies give off a bright glow from their bioluminescent bellies. Ordinarily, the flickering glow of a firefly is standalone. Just because one firefly is showing off its disco lights doesn't mean that all of his buddies will too. However, this particular species, the Photinus carolinus, aka the synchronous firefly, can do exactly that. Of the 19+ species of fireflies that call the Great Smoky Mountains National Park their home, this is the only one that can sync up its flashing light patterns with those around them. Japan takes one look at the glow of the Smoky Mountains and says, hey, we see your firefly party and raise you a glowing squid extravaganza. During their mating season, which is typically between March and June, nightly when most of us are sound asleep around 3 a.m., the firefly squids emerge from the ocean depths, rise to the water's surface, and put on a truly spectacular animalistic display. This amazing electric blue vista is found over in Toyama Bay on the western coast of Japan's main island. Individually, the glowing squid isn't much to marvel at. They're typically no bigger than 3 inches each. However, as the saying goes, strength in numbers. When clusters form, they overtake beaches and create one of Asia's, nay, the world's, most astonishing sights. New Year's Eve in Norway, much like the rest of the world, is a time for celebration. But the regular hullabaloo of a Norwegian New Year was overshadowed as 2011 became 2012, when tens of thousands of herring decided it would be a hoot to slap themselves on the beach. Take a look for yourself. As far as the eye could see, it was fish, fish, and more fish. That particular New Year's was particularly chilly, even by Norwegian standards, at 15 degrees below zero. Although, as it turns out, the bitter cold was a blessing in disguise, because it meant that the local residents' nostrils were saved from a potentially disastrous stench. Weirdly enough, as quickly as they'd arrived, they disappeared. Most of the fish had vacated the premises, thought to have been escorted out by changing tides and winds, after which the local mayor declared they likely actually ended up sinking to the bottom of the ocean. At least this meant that there wouldn't be an expensive cleanup. What brought them onto the shores in the first place? Good question. Scientists actually still aren't too sure. Their reasoning remains somewhat of a mystery. That being said, some have hypothesized that the herring may have been chased ashore by hungry predators. Before we discuss the ins and outs of our next featured strange animal phenomenon, just take a moment to appreciate its surreal beauty. Okay, done appreciating? Good. What you see before you is known as a murmuration. It's a combination of hundreds, even thousands, of starlings dancing in the sky. They twist and turn and change direction at a moment's notice, producing an ever-changing, swirly-dirly spectacle. While humans would need to practice such a delicate dance, starlings have this instinct in their blood. When traveling in packs, as soon as your starling neighbor turns left, you turn left. That's the simple form of explanation. But the detailed form is still being deciphered to this day. For decades, the murmuration phenomenon has puzzled scientists because it goes far beyond what we know from mainstream biology about how our feathered friends behave. Who's familiar with the expression running around like a headless chicken? Let us introduce you to this fine specimen of poultry, Mike the chicken. Correction, Mike the headless chicken. In 1945, a farmer named Lloyd Olson took Mike's head off. But rather than lay down and give up like he was supposed to, Mike decided he wasn't ready to go, and he kept running and running for months. So rather than discard Mike, Lloyd and his family continued to care for it by means of feeding through an eyedropper through its neck, and took Mike on the road to show him off to the masses. According to scientists at the University of Utah, Mike's brainstem remained intact despite the chop. In other words, he got lucky. If you've been paying attention so far, you'll have noticed that the majority of Earth's peculiar animal phenomenon are created by some sort of catalyst. Mating season, murderous crows, herring-seeking predators, and all that jazz. In 2010, down in Pakistan, we had a catalyst of a far more widespread variety, a catastrophic rainstorm that dumped what experts considered 10 years' worth of rain in less than a week. The damage from the flood was enormous, but the news headlines focused on something else: the behavior of the local spiders. Arachnophobes, you've been warned. Residents woke up to find layers upon layers of silk dangling from their trees. Although it wasn't silk, it was a mesh of spider webs, a real-life glimpse into a Stephen King horror novel. Out of fear of the storm and the floodwaters, the spiders spun these giant web cocoons to protect themselves from the surrounding dangers. While not their top priority, the cocoons also acted as a means to feast on millions of passing mosquitoes. So while thousands of humans were struggling, spiders were thriving. A disturbing, definitely annoying animal behavior has wreaked havoc in Africa in recent times: the mass of swarming locusts. In early 2020, hundreds of billions of these bugs awoke from their slumber in their Somalian breeding grounds and went off in search of new vegetation to feed on. Vegetation which sprouts up thanks to any recent rainfall. Locusts eat their own body weight in food every day, so are constantly on the move looking for their next meal. And they do not care who or what gets in their way. This recent plague represents the biggest locust outbreak that many African nations have seen in more than 70 years, with one of the worst hit regions in Kenya. Some attempted to fend off the swarm of desert locusts with sticks and machetes, while others had no choice but to run. In January, the UN appealed for $76 million to tackle the crisis, but that figure has now risen to $138 million. Those locusts patrol the skies. Meanwhile, down on Christmas Island off the coast of northern Australia, the red crab population patrols the ground. It's a sight as alarming as it is unique, and it happens every year during mating season as the red crabs leave their burrows on the land and head toward the coastline in search of love. The female crabs lay their eggs in the ocean and trot back to their burrows while the eggs hatch in the water as larvae. Humans have seen this migration time and time again and decided, hey, if you can't beat them, join them, recently building bridges and underpasses to accommodate the hordes of scurrying shellfish. What do you think of it all? Fascinating or downright creepy? Let us know in the comments. Thought you'd seen all there was to see in the world of glowy things with fireflies and electric squids? Well, think again, because gobsmacked tourists have been dropping their jaws at the sight of the unforgettable beach in the Maldives' Vadhu Island. The so-called Sea of Stars is created thanks to the bioluminescence of millions of tiny marine microbes known as phytoplankton. Without getting too sciencey, as these teeny tiny phytoplankton float around, the movement in the surrounding water sends electrical impulses into their bodies. Those impulses pierce a compartment inside them full of protons, which result in that magical glow. Vadhu only has a permanent human population in the hundreds, yet millions of snap-happy travelers make the trek every year to the watery oasis, bringing in millions of dollars in revenue for local communities. Oh, wait, don't go anywhere yet, dear friends. We've got a bonus entry coming your way. Don't worry, we'll make it quick. If you happen to be visiting Canada in the spring when the weather is warm and sunny, then you're in luck. That is, of course, unless you're scared of snakes. These are the Narcisse snake dens. Twice a year, the dens welcome tens of thousands of red garter snakes who are returning to their homes after a long summer of exploring feeding grounds. They crawl all over the place. You'll find them slithering up in trees, on the rocks, and between limestone crevices, although thankfully they are harmless. There's no cost to hang out with the serpents, but the number of viewers still brings in plenty of cash money for Winnipeg, the nearest major city where visitors often fly into. Did anything in this video stand out? Do you have a favorite new animal? Share your thoughts in the comments.